In this video we're going to start to look at something called surds. So on the screen you should see a couple of different numbers that have been square rooted. So the square root of 2, which is 1.414, etc, etc, etc. The square root of 3, 1.73, blah 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 blah. The square root of 4 is just 2. That's nice, I can work with a 2. And the square root of 5 is 2.23, blah 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 blah. Now, of these numbers, only one of them is exact. Square root of 4 gives me an exact number of 2. The other 3 are what's called irrational numbers, and the way that we can actually use them in their most exact form is by calling them the square root of 2 rather than 1.414213562 blah blah blah. Okay, so we're going to do some calculations with these surds in surd form. First of all, let's have a look at calculating with them. So I've got the square root of 2 times the square root of 5, and these things are really nice and easy. 2 times 5 is 10. So the square root of 2 times the square root of 5 is actually the same as the square root of 10. In this second example, all I've done is, like when we work with algebra, remove the multiplication sign. So this still means the square root of 3 times the square root of 7, and 3 times 7 is 21. So the square root of 3 times the square root of 7 is the square root of 21. In this example, we've had a look at some division. So 20 divided by 2 is actually 10. The square root of 20 divided by the square root of 2 is the square root of 10. In the second example, it's still a division, but I've just written it in a slightly different way. Square root of 15 is being divided by the square root of 3, and the answer to that is the square root of 5. In this third set of examples, there's still multiplications, but in the first one I've got root 5 times root 5. Well, the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 would actually give me the square root of 25. And hopefully you should recognize your square numbers. The square root of 25 is 5. So what happens here is when I do a square root times by itself, the other square root, the square roots actually cancel, because what I'm doing here is squaring the original number. Square and square root are opposites of each other. So the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 just gives me 5. In this example, I've written it slightly differently. This is the square root of 30 times itself, the square root of 30. Now, to do this, I'm not actually going to work out what 30 times 30 is. All I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fact that we looked at previously, the square root of 30 times the square root of 30. The answer is 30. Here are 4 questions for you to have a go at. Pause the video here, hit play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, let's have a look at these then. So in the very first example, the square root of 2 times the square root of 18, 2 times 18 is 36, so the square root of 36 is my answer there. In this example, root 5 times root 7, well 5 times 7 is 35, so the answer to this one is root 35. 42 divided by 7 is 6, so the square root of 42 divided by the square root of 7 is the square root of 6. And in this last one, the square root of 77 squared is just 77. Here are 2 more examples to have a look at. Now, these 2 are slightly different to the other ones. What I've actually got in there as well are integers. So this says 2 times root 3, let's just write this out, 2 times root 3 times 5 times root 2. Now, I can rearrange this slightly, so I can have 2 times 5 times root 2 times root 3. Well, 2 times 5 is 10, and root 2 times root 3 is root 6, and there's my answer. A nice easy way of doing this is just to remember that I can actually deal with the integers separately and then the surds separately. In this example, 10 root 12 divided by 2 root 12, well, 10 divided by 2 is 5, and root 12 divided by root 6 is root 2 to give me my answer. Here are 3 questions for you to have a go at yourselves. Pause the video here, hit play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, so in the first one, 7 times 2 is 14, and root 5 times root 6 is root 30. In the second one, 3 times 3 is 9, And root 7 times root 7, well, I've got to be a little bit careful here because root 7 times root 7 is actually 7. So the answer to this I can give as a whole number. It's actually the integer 63. There is no surd in the answer to this one. In this final question, 50 divided by 5 is 10. Root 30 divided by root 10 is root 3 as my final answer. Well done if you got all three of those correct.